Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Banjo-Kazooie. In the last part, we wrapped up our journeys over in Bubble-Gloop Swamp and immediately accessed the next world here, Freezeezy Peak. This is our ice world for the game, and it comes with a lot of the usual trappings one of those will usually have. You're going to be slipping and sliding all across the ice and snow. But that said, the Talon Truck can actively ignore that terrain property and just let you walk around normally.
Where's our presents? Our dead Boggy said he was fetching them. He's been gone ages.
One of the area-long Jiggy quest lines here is that we need to find presents for those kids because their dad isn't exactly doing so very successfully. In fact, if we go right down here, down this steep slope that you can only Talon trot up, we can find their father in his rather sorry state. Oh, my stomach aches. I shouldn't have eaten that shiny thing. Someone help poor Boggy. Boggy has his own Jiggy for us to worry about, but while your first instinct might be to try and Beak Bomb it out of him, no, we need to do something specific to get that out of his stomach. So the other major trapping besides the slipping and sliding across the snow and like you do across this world is that it comes with freezing water. Similarly to the swamp water filled with piranhas back in Bubble-Gloop, just being in the freezing water will outright damage you. In fact, I want to say it might do so at a faster rate. Largely, you want to ignore it until we eventually go over to Mumbo's hut, which we just saw in the distance, to transform into the transformation there, which, like with prior worlds, is effectively going to be the last thing we do here. Mind you, I say effectively, but there is a bit of an asterisk on that. I brought it up last time, I'll bring it up this time, and I'll even bring it up again next time. Freezeezy Peak and the world after it, Gobi's Valley, are a little bit unique in the game, is that they each have a power-up that you need to get a Jiggy in the opposite. So, while I'm accessing Freezeezy Peak first, we're actively not able to 100% this place until we get a move from Bottles in Gobi's Valley. Likewise, you can't get everything in the Gobi's Valley until you get the move here. So no matter what, there's one world in the game you need to visit twice, which is kind of annoying, but at the same time, it's pretty minor. I actively don't mind them doing this the one time because it adds a little bit of an interesting spice to these two worlds in specific. Plus, the worlds are right next to each other, so it's something that's taken care of pretty quickly. As opposed to something that Banjo-Tooie does that brought up last time, where basically every world has at least 1 to 2 Jiggies in my memory tied to another world, and there's times where it's a really late game area that ties to a really early game one, so you might be waiting on something for a while. Let's get the move from Bottles for this world. Time for some aerial action with my devastating Beak Bomb attack!
Nice one, Goggles. Tell me more.
When you're flying, press B to launch Kazooie at a target like a missile. Choose your targets carefully, though, as it costs a red feather each time you use it. So, I've technically been calling the ground pound the Beak Bomb the entire game. That's not exactly accurate. The Beak Bomb is the upgrade to the flying pads, where now whenever you're in midair with a flight pad, you can press the B button to charge very far forward, very quickly to either kill enemies, press buttons, and the like. With that said, you need to be careful, because if you hit a wall while doing it, you're gonna take a hit.
We're the Twinklies. Protect us from the Twinkly Munchers as we hop across to our tree. If enough of us get there, we can light the tree for you.
This is a pretty straightforward little combat challenge. We have to get these lights to the Christmas tree in the distance. The Twinkly Munchers come out of the 3 holes in the floor, and if you set yourself up correctly, you can get them going in a pretty straightforward pattern of first, third, second, with enough leeway time to get enough Twinklies through that you'll get the timer done. This isn't too hard, but not for nothing. I think this is the closest I've actually pulled this timer in a while, because I got this done pretty much perfectly on my test run, but for some reason this time I get down to like less than 15 seconds remaining, I want to say. Going back to the Beak Bomb, though, it's probably my least favorite ability you learn in Banjo-Kazooie, and unfortunately my issues with it carry through into Banjo-Tooie in my memory. Because while it's good for getting a very far distance really quickly, and especially the larger worlds where flight's allowed, using it to aim precisely like they want you to with it at times can be a nightmare. It's not so bad if the target is stationary, like we're going to be targeting some buttons with it in this world momentarily. But hitting any kind of moving target with the Beak Bomb, be it small movements or large movements, that's where the issues with how it feels really come into play, but I'll talk more about that in a few moments. Getting all the Twinklies in there causes that switch to spawn in.
Whew, that was close, but we made it. Now switch us on.
We need to get to the back of the Christmas tree and hit the on switch that just spawned in with 3 eggs in order to activate the next part of this Jiggy. Watch out for the ice cube enemies around here, by the way. They split when you hit them at least once, and I think they can split up to 3 times, depending on the one. But that said, very good way to get some honeycombs in the case you're taking a lot of damage in this world.
Yippee! Be a star, and you'll find your reward.
The final step of this Jiggy is we need to get to a nearby flight pad over near where we got the Beak Bomb attack and fly through the star on top of the tree 3 times. It can be from either of the 2 directions as long as you fly through the star. Holding down the R button to increase your turn radius or decrease your turn radius can be really good for this, as it really allows you to do quick U-turns to get through the star in either direction. With that said, the star itself does have collision, so if you're even slightly too high or too low, you might get stuck on it for a little bit. But yeah, going back to the Beak Bomb. When you actively press the button to use it, you do hang in the air for a second before charging forward. That hanging still in the air is long enough for enemies to hit you, making you lose the feather you just used trying to do the Beak Bomb. But also, in a lot of cases, that extra second where you hang still is enough time for whatever target you're aiming at to move enough for you to completely whiff the shot, move past the enemy or target, and hit a wall to take some damage. I dislike using the Beak Bomb with precision. Hitting these buttons on this snowman, though, isn't too bad because these targets don't move whatsoever. The big issue with the Beak Bomb in this world specifically is the smaller snowman enemies you may have already seen that will throw snowballs at you. For a couple of different reasons in this world, we need to take care of all of them by hitting their hats. It's easier said than done, I won't lie. Hitting all the buttons on the large snowman, though, does spawn in a Jiggy between the snowman's legs. So each of these snowmen, there's something tied to them. You get something for taking care of all of them, for one thing. But each of them largely hides something unique beneath them. One of the honeycombs is beneath them. One of the presents we need to find for Boggy's kids is beneath one of them. I think the witch switch is below another one. You want to take care of all of them for almost their own reason each. And the precision here needed takes some getting used to. The best thing I can say when it comes to aiming the Beak Bomb is that Kazooie's head is sort of where you'll end up. You can kind of use that as an aiming reticle, but it's not exactly reliable. It's not like, say, the bow and arrow or the hook shot in the N64 Zeldas, where there's a pretty consistent way you can figure out where to aim that the 3DS version only made easier to aim because of an additional graphical detail and the like. You just really need to feel it out. Is the water too cold for you, Banjo? We'll stay out then. Trust me, I'm trying to, for now. If you actively look around, especially near these little houses over here, you might notice there's several notes in the water, and you can just dive in to get those. But I really recommend waiting until you do the transformation for this world, because similarly to the alligator transformation back in Bubblegloop Swamp, whereas the alligator transformation back there allowed us to get into the piranha-infested swamp water without any damage, the transformation here allows us to get into the cold water without any further damage. Also, there's a flight pad on top of the chimney on this house. There's times where it takes me like 15 flips to get up here for no real reason other than I think my placement is just barely off. Because when you do the flip-flap jump backwards, you do notably have a little bit of a traveling arc to begin with. And if you get pushed in certain directions by geometry, that can just completely throw you off where you're trying to aim for, and it does feel really weird. But that's one of the, like, biggest cases where it happens, because there's only maybe 2 other places off the top of my head where it happens any kind of regularly, and those are jumps I don't always have to make. It's weird. There's the witch switch for this level beneath that specific snowman enemy. Meanwhile, I think beneath this one is just a standard piece of health honeycomb, so not super needed, but for what we want to get done, I still want to take care of all of them anyway. And I ended up missing this one for a good couple of tries there, as its placement's just really awkward. Also, as you saw there, even if you actively do hit your target, there's times where Banjo bounces off your target with the Beak Bomb so violently that you just get thrown off to the winds in another direction like that. And, well, if there's anything I'm thankful about, there's basically no times where that happens and it'll kill you, usually. That can probably kill you in specifically the final world. Huh, let's see for Wazza to come out now. Wazza? Oh, hello there. Yikes, a nasty fierce bear. Wazza the Walrus is greatly afraid of bears, so we cannot approach him to get the Jiggy he holds until we've actively done the transformation state for this world. But with that said, come up here really quick, and there's a free extra life behind that ice. There's also a gold feather and I think a red feather up here, but the extra life switch you're probably going to want to grab more often than not. even if your goal in this game is to die as little as possible for reasons of note collecting. So at this point, there's one more thing I want to get done on the ground floor here of Freezeezy Peak before moving on up towards its peak. Namely, I want to go take care of the last of the snowman enemies with a Beak Bomb, just so I can have them out of the way to no longer throw things at me, but also to spawn in the reward for taking care of all of them, one of the 10 Jiggies for this world. And what's good about this is that this actively is very convenient for the order I'm doing things in, as the next Jiggy is in the direction of 2 specific other things I want to grab. That one spawns in an ice cube enemy on the top of the giant snowman in the middle of the map. And while you can just fly up there, take it from me, you actively want to walk up there using the snowman's scarf as your main climbing point, as there's several notes and other items along the way up there that we want to grab. Also, because I had forgotten to up to now anyway, I want to actively head back to the Christmas tree we did things for earlier and grab the Jiggy that spawned in there upon helping the Twinklies do all their deal. Also in here is one of the presents we need for Boggy's kids, a couple of notes, and I think some red feathers in the case you're running low already from using the Beak Bomb a good bit trying to get things done here. I know in my first playthrough, I think I tried to Beak Bomb through the star on this tree to get it done, but thankfully you just need to actively fly through it. The Beak Bomb does nothing to accelerate you getting things done there. If anything, it'll actively harm you more than help you, as you might hit the wall behind the tree and just end up falling down after taking a hit and take more damage from the fall itself. Do not mess around with fall damage too much here in Banjo-Kazooie, because with the exception of one notable trick, it can really easily kill you. With that said, you can sort of pull a Mario 64 in this game with fall damage, where if you do the flutter double jump right before you impact on the ground, like you saved for all the way down there, it will completely reset your momentum and you won't take any damage. With that said, for me specifically, most times I'm falling to my death, I've already used the flutter double jump because I overcorrected or missed my jump to begin with. Especially in the final world, where falling to your death is arguably the biggest threat that world has outside of pure scale, as we'll talk about later on. Along our way to climbing the snowman, though, I do want to go over here and ground pound to the witch switch for this world to spawn in the Freezeezy Peak Gruntilda's Lair Jiggy. With that said, like the 10th Jiggy itself here in Freezeezy Peak, we cannot grab that Jiggy yet. We need the new move from Gobi's Valley in order to access it, so we're going to save that until after Gobi's Valley itself. Also along the way, there's one other present from Boggy we need to grab for his kids. I think this one's beneath one of the snowmen, like I mentioned earlier, at least like I think I mentioned earlier. This specific video's recording might be spread across 2 or 3 days for reasons involving real-life scenarios. So to climb up the snowman, we're going to be following its scarf along the way. What's worth noting is that the scarf is patterned in a red and yellow alternating pattern. The red blocks will have a red feather on them, the yellow blocks will have a note on them. So if you think you're missing a lot of the notes in Freezeezy Peak, worry not. A lot of them are actively along this route. I think at least a 1/5 of them are just on this scarf, if not a little more than that. Already in this LP, I've recommended doing some of the more dangerous elements of a world either first or dead last in a world to preserve your note score for as long as possible. Climbing the snowman here technically falls into that, but more because if you take a fall from the top of it, without doing the special trick I've foreshadowed already, you're likely to die from fall damage alone. Specifically, I know I've missed this jump onto the snowman's broom to grab this Jinjo more times than I'd like to admit, making me lose a life over the years. What is kind of fun about the snowman's head is that for as small as it is compared to the rest of the area, there's a surprising amount of things to do here. For one thing, there's that sled there. We're going to want to use that to ride down off the top of the snowman. We want to shock jump up here and get onto the snowman's smile, and if we walk along the pipe to where the main, I guess, bucket of it is, the next Jiggy is just waiting for you inside of there. On my first playthrough, that took me an embarrassingly long time to find, as for some reason it just didn't click with me that it would be in there. And now we want to climb up the rest of the snowman to the top of his hat in order to get the Jiggy that was already up there that we saw. Plus, as we can see, the third and final present for Boggy's children is right here on top of the nose of the snowman. Snowman, don't look at me like that. Stop looking at me with your special eyes. They're way too big and way too green. The last couple of notes on the snowman are also up here as well, and I won't lie, these are probably some of the most anxiety-inducing notes to grab in the game. If only because, while the top of the snowman's hat is relatively large in its area, the ice physics partnered with how close the notes are to the edge always gives me extreme anxiety about overcorrecting and just falling off. So this is one of those times I recommend you just kind of just barely tap the analog stick in a direction to slowly move on to the note. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but trust me, the safety is worth it in this case. Especially considering, again, to reach effectively everything in the game. While you don't need every note, you need at least 90 notes in every world, and trust me, that goes a long way. With that done, we can now head back in front of the face of the snowman and ride the sled over to its destination and take care of something else along the way. Thankfully, on the way down, they did put a hole in the brim that leads right down to the face, because if I had to precise platform my way back down there, that would probably be one of the scariest moments of platforming in the game. Ride the sled, you get a free Mumbo token, and we ultimately land on Boggy. Oh, that's better.
Hey, you found my sled. I'll go and practice for the big race now. See ya, buddy.
Doing that ejects the Jiggy that he had, I guess, lodged in his esophagus or something like that. And that's another one down with, I think, what, 5 to go at this point? Yeah, but we're only going to be able to get 4 more for now. I believe at this point in the footage, we're now going to go after Mumbo's transformation to grab all the rest of the notes in the Jiggies it leads to. But what's notable about the Mumbo transformation in Freezeezy Peak specifically is that off the top of my head, I think it's the only one in the game you use that you don't need to leave the level with to get something else. Because we had to do that with the termite and the alligator, and getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, the remaining transformations in the game we also have to do that with, albeit the most important one to do that with is the one after this one, off the top of my head. Before you transform though, just to clean everything up nice and smoothly, make sure you jump up to the higher level of this specific Mumbo's hut, as there are several notes up there, as well as my 4th Jinjo. I'm not going to call it the 4th Jinjo because it really depends on what order you do things in, but this is where the yellow one is specifically. Now thinking about it, I think another one of the issues I had with Banjo-Tooie was how it treated Mumbo in terms of being a mechanic, but I'll talk about that after we do our transformation. Banjo gone all fat. Got big teeth. So, the transformation for Freezeezy Peak is a walrus. As a walrus, we have thick blubber, so we can actively withstand the cold of the water here without taking any damage. Thus, we can grab whatever items are in the water, namely some Mumbo tokens, some feathers, but also a lot of notes. On top of that, Waza earlier, the other walrus, was afraid of bears, but I have a feeling he'll react to a little baby walrus pretty positively in comparison, so we should head our way over there as well. Before I head over to Wazi, though, I also want to take care of one other Jiggy here that the walrus allows us to get. Namely, we helped Boggy get the Jiggy out of his body earlier, and in doing so reunited him with his sled. He's now waiting for us at that hill in the distance with his sled ready to race us. There's notably actively 2 Jiggies locked behind him, but one of them is the one I've been talking about up to now where we can't get it until we get a power-up from Gobi's Valley, so we're going to need to come back here to race him again after this. Hey, Mr. Walrus. Fancy a race? Hop on the sled if you do. Don't mind if I do. As soon as I get onto it. Great! Now all you need to do is steer your sled through the red slalom gates and beat me to the end, got it? 3, 2, 1, go. So racing Boggy is harder than it looks because he does have a little bit of a rubber band AI situation going on where if you're too far away, he will kind of speed up, and if you're too far behind, he will slow down. On top of him doing that to begin with at certain places to begin with. Your goal in this race, outside of getting to the end, is to always slalom between the red flags, which will turn them green, and turn the next blue set red to indicate your next goal. Off the top of my head, though, this race has 3 loss conditions. First off, of course, if Boggy beats you to the finish line outright, that's a loss. I believe if you skip a slalom flag and go to the next pair, that is also a loss. And also, if you get left behind too far in the dust, Boggy will just say, let's try this again. You're not trying your best here. And need to start over in that case as well, which is probably the most infuriating type of that, especially when it comes to the second version of this race we'll have to do once we get the move in Gobi's Valley. Staying ahead of Boggy is definitely a little nightmarish, especially as he can take certain turns better than you and the like. But that said, as the walrus at least, you can take some shortcuts here and again, potentially diving into the water for a brief second and not taking any damage. That's not always going to be something you can rely on, though, is the unfortunate thing. Once you're over here where we got the extra life earlier, you are done the race. Whew. You're too quick for me, Mr. Walrus. Here's your medal. I reckon I need to race someone my own size. And you can theoretically try to do that right now, because at this point, Boggy wants to race you as proper Banjo the Bear. But his speed is so tremendously high, you need the next move in order to do so. So we're not going to be able to do that until Gobi's Valley. Wow, another walrus, take this! Well, watch out for Smelly Brown Bear and his ugly bird partner. But with that, and me grabbing the 7th Jiggy here, I'm going to need to end things off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, we're going to finish off Freezeezy Peak for now, before heading off towards Gobi's Valley. See you guys then.